Hello and welcome to the Gambling Files podcast, the podcast that has a strong feeling of deja vu. Not just because Mel and I just recorded the intro for the other episode this week, but because we also just tried recording this one and then the software all went absolutely tits up. So, I'm John Bruford, one of your hosts, joined by your stand-in, interim, supportive, caring, snowflake co-host, Melanie Ellis, partner at Northridge Law. Melanie, welcome.
Thanks, John. I'm not sure why you're describing me as a snowflake again, though.
I was describing your jumper as snowflakey.
Okay.
Did I hurt your feelings?
That's just a little bit.
Ooh, yes. You see how that works, though?
No.
Because you're a delicate snowflake.
Oh, yeah. It's all right.
Thing is, right, snowflake as an insult, I find it a really bizarre one. Because who doesn't like snowflakes? They're fucking awesome. I mean, they're just incredibly beautiful.
Yeah, and it's so cool when it snows, especially in this country when it's so rare.
But like snowflakes are all individual, all unique, etc., etc. It's like,
yeah,
how can it's like calling somebody, "Oh, you fucking rainbow." Who the hell doesn't like rainbows?
Special and rare.
Look at you fucking twatty cherry blossom. Who doesn't like cherry blossom?
Coming up with some really good new insults here. I think I might try those.
Well, so years ago, I worked at a publishing company, and my colleagues realised they could make some serious money off me by putting a swear jar on the desk. And so I sort of got around it for a little while by just substituting words. So I might call somebody a harpoon, for example.
Okay.
Harpoon. And they go, no, it's the intent, swear jar.
Oh,
and
really?
Four of us went out, had a curry, and got drunk on about a month of swear jar. Yeah.
Because I know some authors get around not wanting to put swears in their book by creating world-specific swear words. Particularly this happens in fantasy books. So they create some swear words that are relevant to that world, and then the book as a whole can be read by a younger audience.
Well, there's a two instances in popular culture spring instantly to mind, and it was they made it past censors by dint of ignorance, basically, and it both happened with American censors. And one of my all-time favorites, I remember watching an episode of Miami Vice, so this would have been about 1986, and Phil Collins was the guest star, right, playing a dodgy English geezer. And he just turns around and calls Crockett and Tubbs wankers. Now, Miami Vice, primetime TV show, and primetime in the US, it's a very rude word. But I just thought, yeah, somebody doesn't know what that means, do they? Like the producers, censors, anybody involved. But I think my actual favorite, I think it's in the first Avengers movie. And it's Tom Hiddleston says it. And the way he says it, it's like there's something about a really good, well-spoken English insult. But he does this absolute scathing put down. But I'm thinking, hang on, this is a PG. I'm sitting in the cinema and I'm like, what the fuck? But he just says to somebody, mewling quim. I'm like,
using Old English, that's a good option.
It's phenomenal. And I thought, again, yeah, the censor hasn't got a dictionary handy. It's just unreal. But like I say, with the Englishness of how it was said as well, it was just so scathing. Brilliant. So anyway, right. So quiet period for you then, just for Christmas, because, not much going on in UK gambling, is there?
Well, I mean, I think the main thing going on is everybody's reeling from the government's announcement of new gambling tax rates.
Oh, has something been announced?
Well, just a small increase in gaming gambling duties. coming into effect. Well, the first change coming into effect next April, with remote gaming duty going from 21% to 40% of gambling revenue.
That does sound quite a lot.
Yeah, it is quite a lot. I think it's very difficult to find how you're going to absorb 20% increase. That's before any of your other costs. It's not like an increase in a profits tax. It's just on your gambling revenue.
Yeah, so taxed on turnover.
Yeah,
and that's pretty brutal.
For sure. So, and I think everyone's having to think, where are we going to find this money? And it's got to be cuts in marketing budget, cuts in staffing.
Yeah.
Or as sort of some would cynically say, well, it's just an incentive. You've got to try and get people to gamble more now.
Yeah, which is exactly what we wanted.
Just what we wanted. But yeah, I think the sort of the first area to cut is marketing budgets, which is unfortunate when we've already got predatory, unlicensed operators.
Just sitting there waiting, cackling.
Exactly, and now the bonus offers that they can, be putting out there are just going to be hugely more appealing than anything someone can offer when they're paying 40% tax on their turnover.
It's hard to see this. It's hard to see this going well.
It is hard to see, and the government tried to explain this with reference to rates of gambling harm. We've adjusted the rates for different activities based on how harmful we think they are, and that seems to just be really on perception and perhaps what sort of people have put as submissions to them, rather than even the Gambling Commission's own data.
Here's the thing, right? And I don't care who takes issue with this. I totally stand by what I'm about to say, right? Historically, certainly for my generation and for the next generation, the route into gambling, our first experiences of gambling, are always betting on horses with the family or whatever, Grand National, or the lottery. Now, both of those, despite being the entrance door for generations, have been left untouched. Right?
Yes.
Right. What has been battered is the one industry where everything is truly trackable and measurable. And that's the difference in those figures. Because you cannot tell me that they've been standing in newsagents' doors counting people coming out with fucking scratch cards. Because I'm not an apologist for the gambling industry, and I never will be. But, I also appreciate it doesn't warrant the demonization that it gets on the whole. Scratch cards, though, there's no monitoring it. You can't regulate this shit. Some Saturday kids working behind a counter, they're not going to know that same person was in there the day before spending 60 quid on scratch cards. How can they? I did an article on this a couple of years ago, and the lottery provider at the time, it was still Camelot, they were saying, we train people in this, that, and the other. I'm like, but a lottery kiosk in a supermarket where they're also selling the cigarettes and dealing with customer queries, they're going to see 3,000 people in a day quite comfortably. They're not. Why? How can you expect them to remember? You can't.
Yeah. Certainly. Yeah. So there's a lot more that happens in a betting shop or a casino in terms of monitoring of customers. And I suppose, with the scratch cards as well, you don't know if somebody's just going from shop to shop, potentially.
No, you really don't. I mean, it's a deterrent, a theoretical deterrent.
But
the average shop is just going to sell you what you've asked for.
I think linking the tax rates to perceived, well, gambling harm rates is just a fiction, to be honest, because it's not linked to the actual data, and it's not going to serve the purpose of reducing people's harm from gambling. In fact, it's probably going to make it worse, isn't it? Especially with the online slots and casino games, when it's so easy to find and even accidentally find yourself on a black market site, where there's not going to be any protections. There's no potentially no monitoring, self-exclusion, ability to set limits on your play.
Every route that there is to a legal gambling site is replicated to an illegal one. There are affiliates pushing players there. There is advertising pushing players there. Every single route is replicated. And so people, unless they are pretty discerning and looking to avoid, they're just going to see, holy cow, look at the odds on this place compared to that place.
Yeah, well, these guys are doing a £50 match deposit bonus offer. I don't see that with any of the big names that I normally play with. So,
and it is one of the really interesting things in how regulation works worldwide. There is always a disconnect between government and regulator. And that's actually a problem, because the regulator, in theory, understands the business, or should, and the government doesn't have to. And so you have governments setting those tax rates, not knowing the harm that they're about to fucking do. And that's exactly what we've just seen in the UK.
I think I just find it slightly disingenuous that the government are trying to put out their narrative that they're doing this to protect people from gambling harm. So I don't think that's what they are doing. I think they just saw this as an easy target. They need to try and balance the books. Yeah, let's try and get $1 billion from say we're going to get $1 billion from the gambling industry by raising the taxes.
But $1 billion, how soon? Isn't it 5 years?
Yeah, and they're not going to get $1 billion.
No, they're really not.
So.
But I do feel for the Gambling Commission in this, because they're always tarred with the brush of being, the villain and the police and all that. But actually, they've absolutely nothing to do with this.
Well, I would say they potentially have some small thing to do with this, and not deliberately. But their gambling survey for Great Britain, which has found, due to its different methodology, rates of problem gambling, which are in some cases like 10 times higher than found in all the previous surveys conducted by the NHS. I think that's just really given fuel to people who are calling for something to be done to stop this, growing problem of gambling harm. And if you've got figures saying 2.7% of the population are problem gamblers, then that makes it an easier story to say we need to raise tax on this activity.
Mel, got a question for you. I don't think you're going to be able to answer it. Has anybody ever done a study on the correlation between a rise in poverty and a rise in gambling harm?
Not that I'm aware of.
I would bet both my kidneys that there is a line which almost runs parallel. And yet you've got, on the one hand, you've got Gordon Brown, former Chancellor, former Prime Minister, devoutly religious man, seems like a perfectly nice bloke, talking out of his arse in The Guardian and saying, oh, we can solve child poverty. Dude, you're part of the reason we've got fucking child poverty, but let's just brush that fucker under the table. He's saying, oh, if we tax gambling firms with this, we can solve child poverty, blah, blah, blah. All right. That does not look at any of the reasons for child poverty. It doesn't explain why we've got it. It doesn't explain why it's risen so much in one of the world's wealthiest economies. Because a wealthy economy has no correlation whatsoever to individual wealth and well-being. The two things are completely exclusive, as America is showing right now with figures of growth and more people using food banks than have ever been used in America's history. Only because they probably weren't doing numbers during the Great Depression, but we're not that far away from it.
Yeah. No. What? Yeah. In my view, what we need to solve is a huge disparity between the incredibly wealthy few people at the top and the large number of people at the bottom who are really struggling. And if we look at countries like Scandinavian countries, they have a much smaller disparity between the richest and the poorest, and I think they're happier societies overall.
100%, yeah. It is a thing, though, Mel. People will always argue, trickle-down economics. It's bollocks. It's proven to be bollocks. It's an absolute myth. We've got a great example in this country of somebody who earns a shitload of money and pays a shitload of tax in Denise Coates, right? She's never held up as a good example. But as far as I'm aware, there is no tax avoidance in her. Yeah, and she would be scrutinised. Full well the Guardian would be all over that, like stink on shit.
Yeah, she's taken the deliberate choice to stay in the UK, pay large amounts of corporate tax and VAT, etc.
Right. But people are saying, but the billionaires will leave. Right. Well, what exactly are they bringing right now? Because I don't see anything. I don't see the fucking Barclay brothers doing anything for anybody. Other than being part of the reason why train ticket prices are so fucking high. Did you know that? Do you know how much rolling stock the Barclay brothers own?
No, I didn't know. Were they?
They own a lot. And the train companies don't own it. They have to lease it.
I see. They have to lease it.
That's how the franchises work. They have to lease the rolling stock. The train companies never own it.
I see.
Why on earth would that be part of the rules for having a franchise? That doesn't make any sense. It does, because a wealthy person made that rule so another wealthy person would benefit. That's insane. That kind of shit. It's like, Farage and co. and this Labour government, and definitely the Tories.
Yeah.
They all want to be on the coattails of those mega rich people. And I lean less in that direction, I've got to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Because they're not they're not contributing anything. Most of them are based elsewhere for tax reasons or evading creatively tax. And
not necessarily evading, but
avoiding
things.
But
they've structured things in a tax efficient way.
Well, look at Starbucks, right? Look at Starbucks. Favorite trivia question of many people: who's the number one exporter of coffee in the Western Hemisphere? Switzerland. It's bonkers. Switzerland is where Starbucks headquarters is, right? So you have the way that Starbucks opens up. It follows the old Walmart model. So you have a Starbucks that opens, and people are like, "Ooh, Starbucks." And then another one opens a couple of streets over. And before you know it, you've got 8 Starbucks in, a couple of acres.
Mm-hmm.
And it wipes out the local competition and the existing competition. Mm-hmm. And then they start to close some of those Starbucks. Okay. What you're left with is a few Starbucks, no local competition, and they can do what they like with prices. I'm not suggesting for one moment that that's ever happened. So allegedly, the setup of Starbucks is that all of the Starbucks branches have to buy all of their Starbucks branded stuff from head office in Switzerland. And the prices of those can vary according to how much corporate tax might be due, etc., etc., etc. So the company is structured to pay as little corporation tax as it possibly can. Apparently. So I read somewhere. And that's awfully clever, but what do we have in the UK on gambling, on remote gambling? Don't we have point of consumption tax?
Mm-hmm.
So why can't you apply a point of consumption tax to hot beverages? You can. It just becomes a part of the till software.
Oh, so you're suggesting we put a tax on hot drinks?
Yeah, not shitloads.
Okay.
But if Starbucks is able to avoid billions over the years. We are talking billions.
That would affect your independent coffee shops as well.
It would, but it would also level the playing field, because that independent shop has always been paying its taxes and always been paying its rates, etc. Always been doing that because they don't have these creative accountants. They don't have the ability to set up a company in Switzerland, etc.
Yeah, for sure.
So it levels the playing field. And then suddenly you've got Starbucks saying, oh, but it's not profitable anymore. Oh, we're going to have to close. Just think of the jobs. Think of the jobs. Okay, I'll think of the jobs. And you can fuck off. Because if you actually looked at what existed pre-Starbucks, what you would find is a community that was full of local cafes run by local people, buying things locally. And it's been very well proven by Preston Town Council, of all people, would you believe, that money that is spent in the locality stays in the locality rather than being filtered out to a bunch of shareholders or to Switzerland or wherever. And so, these businesses that spend locally and employ locally and employ more full-time people and fewer part-time people, because let's face it, each Starbucks branch has, I think, one full-time member of staff, possibly two, allegedly. I don't know for sure. I've never been in one. Just kidding.
Really?
I've been in Starbucks.
I was going to say.
But I haven't drunk coffee in like 20 years, 22 years.
Oh, really? Okay. You drink tea instead?
No, I don't have any caffeine.
Hot chocolate?
No. No stimulants whatsoever.
So this is why you're advocating the hot drinks tax, because you don't drink them yourself.
No, I'm saying it because right now corporations in the UK are bleating about, just think about how many jobs we create. Yeah, jobs that have no benefit because they have no sick pay, no holiday pay. You pay fuck all. They're not paying corporation tax. These businesses are not bringing anything to communities. They're not bringing anything to the UK at all. They're siphoning money out. It's like, privatization of the water companies. Well, who bought all those shares, Mel? Who bought all those shares?
Not me.
Foreign governments and foreign businesses, we're paying into their pension funds. And great, that's how it works. That's what you're wide open to when you privatize. That's what happened to Manchester United, for fuck's sake. Once you're on the stock market, anybody can buy those shares. It's frustrating because so little has been done in the last 30 years for British people. And now social media has been mobilized, etc. We've got a government that's come in and they fucked up. All they had to do was not be the Tories, and all they've done is fuck up at every step, right? It's frustrating. They had a clean slate. All they had to do was not be shit, and that's what they've got wrong, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm not a huge supporter. I'm not a huge supporter of any political party. I do think they had potentially an impossible task when the Labour government when they came in, because
they did, but that's the clean slate as well.
Yeah,
having a difficult job is the clean slate. But Reform has come in, and that Reform has said, "Oh, look at the terrible job Labour is doing, etc." And they're very smart in how they use social media. And all of these things that are not the fault of any migrants are being blamed on people coming in boats. People are forgetting that, the only reason that we can't send any boats anywhere is because we voted out of the European Union. Do you know what I mean? It's like there's a whole bunch of harms here, and all of them go back to big old money.
Yeah. I agree. Migrants are such a tiny issue, such a tiny cost to the country compared to, as you say, money flowing to large corporations.
Also, try and run the NHS without migrant labour.
Yeah, and I think people forget that we're talking about like humans here who are, in many cases in a desperate situation. Why else would you try and cross the channel in a rubber dinghy?
Absolutely. Abso-freaking-lutely.
Yeah.
And, just being absolutely demonized and blamed for every possible ill.
Yeah.
It's sloganeering and simplistic
and you have one migrant who, as in any group of people, that there are some who are not nice people. So one migrant causes some trouble in the local community, and then everybody gets tarred with the same brush. English flags get put up on all the lampposts, and everybody feels unwelcome.
So like my grandma used to say, Mel, there are tossers everywhere. But
Yes.
that also means there are not tossers everywhere. And you know, some people that I don't think are tossers are the sponsors of this
Yeah, I
podcast,
was
Mel.
gonna say. I'm sure they're all lovely people.
They are lovely people. And we're going to kick off today's choir preaching because I'm sure all of our listeners know just how much we love them. But Optimove, who created the positionless marketer concept, we think it's the number one CRM software used in the iGaming industry. And if it isn't, it really should be by now because we've seen it and it's stunning. And if you follow the link in the show notes, they will give you a month free for in your first year. So that's a bonus. Plus, it sort of says to them that we're vaguely relevant and it allows us to keep making podcasts with special double episode weeks like this one. With special, because, you know, Mel's not cheap. This costs us money to... Oh, no, hang on. No, sorry. That's...
I have not seen any of this money.
Yeah, that was something else. But yes, so Optimove, link in the show notes. But also, definitely not tossers. Every Matrix, we love them long time. But Every Matrix, and I don't like to deviate from what I feel within my soul, but I'm thinking about getting this tattooed on me. Because I thought I might get the opening line of The Outsiders as a tattoo at some point, because I really love that book. But then I thought, nah, that's just crazy. That's just hanging on to childish things. What I'm going to get instead is I'm going to get these words. See if they resonate with you, Mel. Delivering advanced turnkey platform technology to the global regulated iGaming and lottery industries with outstanding results. That's going to be down my left leg. Powering the world's biggest brands. That's going to be on my left buttock. Solving your biggest challenges, right buttock. Taking your business to the next level, right thigh. And in Every Matrix, everything is possible. Just across here, across my collarbones.
Okay.
What do you think?
Nobody could ever describe you as a sellout. That's what I think.
No, certainly not. Although me and Fintan, we were talking ages ago. We were like, you know, is there any way that we can monetize this this podcast? And we were talking about possibly getting people to sponsor the bottom of our glass.
So I'll be subtle. Mm-hmm.
But also this little bit of real estate right here.
I hope you're thinking a hat rather than anything more permanent.
Shit, I hadn't even thought of a hat.
A hat. This is what you pay me for.
Damn it, yeah, I could wear a hat too.
Sensible advice. That's what I'm here for.
So if anybody out there has a hat that they'd like me to wear, you can rent space on my head for this podcast, because we are actually growing on YouTube. It's like we've organically just wound up with like 80 subscribers on YouTube, and we never promote YouTube, but it turns out people do kind of, presumably they don't watch, they just like stick it onto play and do something else.
I hope so.
I'd hope so, because I
hope they're not there staring at my face. Oh my God.
No, they're just admiring your lawyer trophies.
They're not lawyer trophies.
Yes, they are. They are to me, Mel. This is my reality we're living in.
I'm going to get one, bring it over, and show you that it is a very.
I bet you your actual lawyer trophies at work, though, I bet they're like clear resin or something, aren't they?
They are there, yeah. And as I was saying before, none of them actually, I don't think, relate to my personal work. But there is a nice collection of sort of resin and kind of an oak base type of trophies.
You know, the resin ones, it always makes me chuckle because so often they just photograph horribly. You've always got people on LinkedIn with, look at my trophy. I can't, it's see-through.
Oh, right, yeah.
I can see you're holding a bit of wood.
They look nice. So we have a little, for some reason, I guess when the office was designed, they put a sort of a lectern type thing in our reception area. I suppose that thought was a receptionist would stand behind there, but that would be a complete waste of resources. So anyway, it's now been repurposed as a sort of trophy stand, which I guess makes a sort of nice, impressive first impression. But yeah, so it's got a few of these resin trophies.
There's a pub in Ludlow called the Church Inn, right? And years ago, a friend of mine, Floyd, he was running it, and it had an old pulpit as you walk in the door. And a friend of mine walks in, sees Floyd behind this pulpit, and then from that moment on, Floyd had the nickname Davros because he looked like the chief Dalek behind this pulpit. So I think there can be danger with kiosks, is what I'm saying.
Yes, yeah. So I don't stand behind this.
I'd undoubtedly end up calling you Davros. So Clarion Gaming also not tossers, and they provide the industry's number one networking and business event in ICE, which is coming very soon in Barcelona. I'm going. Are you going?
Yeah, I need to book my flights and hotel actually.
Shit, you really do. That's crazy.
I know, I've left it a bit late, haven't I? Yeah, I do. I'd put that on my list now actually.
I think everybody's gotten wise that there's a big event there, and the prices have gone up. Yeah, so we're presenting the Gambling Book Awards at during ICE. We were going to do it at ICE, but we've settled on a venue which we haven't announced yet. Actually, I can't believe I didn't do that on the other episode because that's also relevant. But we're presenting the Gambling Book Awards, and we're going to do it so this is our first year of doing this, and so I sort of approached some connections from my dim and distant past. And I spoke to Data Team Business Media, and I said, "Could we do this?" And my original pitch to them was, "Can we do this as part of the, the drinks reception at the European Casino Awards? Can we do something in your reception area?" And they're like, "Come in and do it as part of the awards. We'll have a little segue. You can come on, you can explain what you're doing, and you can give the awards there." So we're taking our shortlisted authors. Shortlist not yet been announced. The long list was announced today. So we're taking our shortlisted authors and we are taking them to the European Casino Awards, where we're going to give them money and food and booze, basically.
Nice.
Yeah, it should be for them. Yeah, I think they'll have a nice evening.
Yeah, it's normally some nice food at that awards.
I would hope so. I mean, you don't want to be sitting in some awards and the food shit.
No.
You'd be like, you want good food, you want lots of booze. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, I was the European Casino Awards was my baby, and I sort of invented it and developed it. I'm not dissing Data Team when I say that. Obviously, you don't do that without resources and assistance around you. But yeah, it was very much my baby, and the point of it was always, let's give people a great night out. Let's do something that's not shit, that doesn't hang around too long, that is a superb networking event in a nice place with nice stuff, and everybody leaves and they go, "I had a really good night." And that was the basic concept. And I haven't been since we parted ways, but the event is still going, and they've transplanted it to Barcelona with ICE. So
yeah, I went last year, and it was very nice.
Good, because I'd hate to be bigging it up, and I get there and I'm like, oh man.
Yeah, no, it was a nice venue, nice area for the reception. That was. Sometimes these, this sort of drinks reception beforehand, it can be somewhere quite dark and noisy, but it was bright, well lit, lots of space, pleasant to chat to people beforehand, a nice meal, yeah.
Good. And the total bonus that's in 2026 edition, I'll be there.
Even better.
And so will Fintan. Crazy. He's already sporting his winter haircut that anybody watching don't know, it might be the week after next episode. Yeah, it'd be the week after next episode. You'll see Fintan's winter haircut. He's looking good.
Has he been shorn for the
Yeah,
hat wearing season?
He's quite shorn. Let's just say he's ready for the whole month. You know, even with the speed at which his hair grows, he's going to be good until probably mid-January. Maybe I'll have a special ice haircut. Maybe somebody could sponsor Fintan's hair.
Ooh, someone could sponsor him to shave the whole thing off, maybe.
I would do that. I will
money.
sponsor him to do that. Just with, you know, that charity that makes wigs for kids with cancer, like Fintan could probably furnish 5 children.
Yeah, he could just grow it for a few months, and then a child who wants a beautiful curled mane.
Perhaps a child that doesn't have access to pillows.
Yes.
Because it's essentially an inbuilt pillow. When I fainted outside and I smacked my head open, like the doctor that was looking at me, it was really bizarre. He just said, "Did you shave your head this morning?" I'm like, "Yeah, why?" He said, "Because if you hadn't, even a tiny fraction of hair would have made a huge difference."
Really, just like a day's provides cushion.
Instead of having an inch high lump on the back of my head.
That's a good reason not to shave your head.
Yeah, it's a better reason. Better reason to not faint, I think, frankly.
Yeah.
So look, we haven't even mentioned who's in this episode.
Yeah, that's true. We need to do that.
Do you know who's in the episode?
You need to tell me.
Yeah, I was just wondering if you knew, that's all. Just wondering if you were psychic. So we're joined, I say we, I mean me and Fintan are joined by Steve Ruddock of Straight to the Point newsletter fame. You know, people familiar with the podcast will know that we've had Steve on many times, and he's always knowledgeable and always insightful, talking about a lot of what's been going on in the US and how utterly batshit most of it is, and the sort of longer term repercussions potentially for the regulatory structure of the US with prediction markets, etc. And everything just seems to be muddying the water and blurring the lines, and that's not generally a good thing where regulation is concerned. Regulation needs to be clear and concise and easy to follow. And I don't think we can describe anything in the American gambling industry as that at the moment. So Steve's on and talking about that. And if you're not already subscribing to the Straight to the Point newsletter, get on it, because I think there's 3 really, really, really good newsletters in the industry at the moment. Steve's, Scott Longley's newsletters, Earnings and More, and all of those, they're really, really good. And I think Jake Pollard's, Jake's does have a French focus, but it's not all about France. But they're all really, really good quality. And interestingly, all being done by independent journalists, essentially. So that's interesting. Anyway, enjoy the episode. Joined by this week's guest, a returning guest. I guess he just had a bit too much time on his hands. Joined by the inimitable, the hirsute, the legendary Mr. Steve Ruddock. Steve, welcome.
I'm just very happy that I know both of those words, inimitable and hirsute.
I couldn't spell them though.
I know, when you said both of those words, I thought you meant Steve and Ruddock.
Legendary.
Never heard of that guy.
Ah, fuck.
Is he the one who keeps spamming me with emails? Is that the guy?
Oh man, I get an email a day off him, I tell you. Oh, and it's always the news this, the news that.
Making me feel bad because he's like doing the hard work and giving the insights and the analysis.
Canal.
God.
We can switch.
You don't want my news and analysis. You really don't. Mine will be, I bumped into one of the neighbours earlier. She seems well. That's it. took the dog out, but he didn't do a poo. I don't know where he thinks he's going to do that. That'll be my news.
My dog does that too now. It's she's an English Mastiff that's 11, so she like pretends she can't hear even though she can, and she knows if she goes out, like she'll kind of look back at you. She's waiting to hear the very specific magic word. I don't want to say it, so she'll get all riled up. But it's sort of like treat, and she like pretends she can't hear you until you say that word, and I could say it at like whisper it with my back to her, and then suddenly she can hear, which is amazing.
I used to know a Great Dane who would get, I guess the human equivalent would be, like stage fright. But in the context of peeing, some people can't pee if they're being watched or whatever. And I knew a Great Dane who had this very affliction. And she would go out like last thing at night, sit for us house sitting for her owners, let her out the back. She goes out the back and she'll start peeing. She's a big dog. She does big wheeze. She's doing a wee. And if you just look at her, she'll just stop and hold her position for as long as you like. And I experimented with her. I appreciate it probably sounds like some form of terrible cruelty, but I experimented with her and she will not pee for a really long time. And then you just have to shift your eyes away like so. And she'll start again. It's like having a remote control. It's amazing. But I don't know what her issue was with that. She was a great dog in other ways.
She's just got a shy bladder. It happens. It happens.
Does it though?
Yeah, she's a stall dog.
That's a great
phrase. Doesn't like the urinal, right? Stall dog.
Now, if we do nothing else this week, Fintan, we have a podcast on which a phrase has been coined.
Oh, it's the name of this episode. Stall dogs. You're done.
Like a Tarantino movie.
It does, isn't it?
Right.
Mr. Schybladder. We just need Uma Thurman's feet, and I think that we've got the perfect Tarantino movie.
Yeah, well, it's through Tarantino that I encountered the writings of Eddie Bunker, who, of course, played Mr. Blue in Reservoir Dogs and was, in fact, a real career criminal.
Really? Really?
Yeah. He was a bad motherfucker as well. He was the youngest ever inmate in San Quentin. And I think he might have been the youngest man ever on the FBI's most wanted list. And when he was in jail, when he was in San Quentin, he was in at the same time as Danny Trejo was, who I'm sure you've heard of.
Oh, yeah.
So he's in at the same time as Trejo, and they knew each other a little. And Bunker got out of jail by writing because he'd heard about another inmate who'd written a book, and the parole board looked on it kindly. He'd rehabilitate, and he started writing in jail. And he wrote a book called No Beast So Fierce, which is a fantastic book, and it's actually Tarantino's favorite crime novel. And he's an extraordinary writer, and I'm not saying that because he's cool and nobody's heard of him. He's an extraordinary writer, absolutely extraordinary. And he wrote an autobiography. The autobiography is unreal. He's like having dinner with fucking Truman Capote, all these luminaries. He was in San Sebastian, the Hearst, William Randolph Hearst's castle, and its famous $1 million marble pool. You know what I'm talking about?
No.
You're way more cultured than I am on that.
Big castle.
The name William Randolph Hearst.
Hearst was
cars.
Hearst was a media magnate in the 10s, 20s, 30s, and 40s. Think Rupert Murdoch, but with way more power and way more money. And he built this fantastical castle. I can't remember where it was. It must have been outside LA. On a hill. It's this sort of Gothic type place. And he built a swimming pool. And the swimming pool cost $1 million in the 30s.
Was it champagne?
A marble swimming pool. Okay. So for it to be marble, to be $1 million, it's got to be, presumably it's blue marble. I don't know. But Bunker there's a story in his autobiography because he was befriended by the wife of Hal Wallace, who was a movie producer in the 20s and 30s. I think it's Louise Wallace. She like took him under her wing, trying to show him the ways of the world, not in a sexual way, just, you know, meet these people, get a good start in life. She was friends with Hearst's mistress. She went to the Hearst castle to support the mistress while Hearst was dying. Bunker sees the pool, thinks, I'll just have a bit of a swim, and is swimming in the pool in just his jeans when Hearst dies in the castle. And it's like, you just think, of all the places you could have been, you were in the $1 million. Anyway, so years later, I was at a gaming industry event, and I don't very often go to these things, but I went because one of the slot manufacturers, Novomatic, had done a From Dusk Till Dawn slot, and they had Danny Trejo on their booth. Well, I didn't see that because I was busy, but I knew he was going to be at their little party. And I go to this party, and there's Danny Trejo on a fucking throne in the corner. And you've never seen anybody with a better don't fuck with me vibe in your life, right? Because he was a bad guy. There's no getting around it. But Trejo got his start in movies because Bunker was consulting on a crime film. I think it was Runaway Train. They needed a boxer. Trejo was a champion boxer in San Quentin. Bunker sees he's one of the extras, says, this is your guy for the boxing. That's Trejo's start in films. And obviously he's been in everything since then. So I see Trejo in the corner, and I just went over to him. Nobody was talking to him. I just went over to him and I said, I'm a big fan of your friend Eddie Bunker. And we just had a chat about Edward Bunker. And it was just one of the nicest experiences. He was a lovely, Trejo was just an adorable man. There's a brilliant documentary about him and his work in the community. Shit, I'm really sorry. I really went on with that. But anyway, yeah. So Mr. Blue, Reservoir Dogs, Stall Dogs. So Steve.
Segue.
Follow that.
Yeah.
What you got?
Well, no, actually, I want to talk about, this is about today's Straight to the Point. So I'm immediately dating this episode. Because there's loads of things I want to talk to you about. I want to talk to you about prediction markets. I want to talk to you about all of that mess and about that mess in Nevada and DraftKings and FanDuel saying, yeah, you can stick your fucking license. We're just going to do this prediction. And that's all really fascinating and a bit bonkers. But this story out of Ohio is like, what's going on, Steve? Well, so Mike DeWine, which is a great name, has said Ohio shouldn't have done it, referring to the state's 2021 legalization of sports betting. And he was the man with the signature, right?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was, he wasn't like gladly signing it like Andy Beshear in Kentucky and then running ads for his reelection about the added revenue. But yeah, this is something that's kind of been bubbling under the surface all year. And I think the sports betting hangover is really kicking in the country. You see a couple of bills in other states. DeWine is mentioned before. So he actually, when Major League Baseball instituted that $200 limit per pitch and no parlays on like specific bets to keep the integrity of the game upheld, I tweeted, and very innocuously, like, I doubt this will go far enough for some states. And I immediately got some text messages saying, didn't you see DeWine's comment about it? So apparently if you say some states, everybody thinks you mean Mike DeWine. And I said, well, yes, but it just happened. Like, what's he going to say? This is terrible. So he said, this is a good, and of course you do the politician thing. This is a good ... first step, or I'm pleased by this, this development. It's never like, oh, this is exactly what I wanted. We're good here. Nothing else to see. And I just feel like this is just going to keep happening, and people complain about the conflation between offshore and legal markets. And you are going to get conflation times 1,000 when prediction markets are everywhere. So I have a feeling that 2026, we're going to see a lot more states looking at reining in sports betting, whether that's advertising, whether that's specific markets that they're allowed to offer, betting limits. And I wouldn't be surprised if you see like maybe 4, maybe more bills that say we want to repeal our sports betting law. I don't think this will go anywhere, but it's going to happen.
But surely, like, I mean, if somebody was asking me about what I thought was going to happen in 2026, I'd be like, well, the thing that needs to happen is there needs to be clarity on who has oversight on prediction markets. That definition of gambling needs to be in concrete. That's got to happen, because otherwise there's going to be a whole bunch of people doing a whole bunch of gambling with no oversight, with no protections, with I don't see anything really good coming out of that. Do you know what I mean? And it's 50 states, in theory. 50 states are wide open to this. Like that's the thing that I hope would be top of the pile. But I'm also hopelessly naive, as Fintan will. Back me up there, Fintan.
Hopelessly naive.
See?
Optimist, really.
So the problem is that it won't be solved in 2026. So it's definitely not going to be solved in the courts. We're going to be well into 2026 before we even start to get inklings of how courts are going to rule on this. Then there's the appeals process. So we're kind of stuck with this. So if I was consulted on what should we do about this, I think the best way to deal with prediction markets, and I kind of tweeted about this not too long ago, which is just give an alternative to them, because people don't really seem to want to use them unless that's what they have to use. The interesting thing to me on this is my theory on online gambling is that there is a huge swath of the population that will only do it if they think it is legal. So you saw this after Black Friday. Yes, there was still a U.S. online poker industry, but this idea that everybody just flocks to offshore sites, which they all were anyway at the time, but that you're just going to transition from Poker Stars and Full Tilt to whatever the sites were, just doesn't hold water, because I know the people who are playing on Poker Stars and Full Tilt, and when all of a sudden the DOJ says, oh, this is illegal gambling, most of them stop playing, because they just like, oh, I don't want to do something that's considered illegal, even if it doesn't really have any bearing on what I'm doing. Like, I'm not actually doing something illegal, the thing itself is illegal. So prediction markets has this interesting workaround that offshore doesn't, which is a lot of people think it's legal, because it is. Right now it is legal. I can't make an argument saying that it isn't. But what's interesting is the only reason a lot of people in some of these states would jump to a prediction market over, say, the offshore sports books is that legal classification. So I think we're starting to see that, yes, there is this cohort in, I think, everywhere in the world that is like, I don't want to do something illegal. They're not going to look into it deeply enough to realize, well, I'm in no legal jeopardy here playing on this. Only people offering the product that are in legal jeopardy, unless I live in Washington State. So I think that's one of the interesting aspects of this is the classification as a legal place-to-place wagers or buy contracts, whatever the hell you want to call it, gives it some cover in just the general population as far as when they'll use it. But I think everybody who has talked about this has been spot on. The CEOs of the other companies, I don't think they're just blowing smoke. If you stick it next to DraftKings, people are going to use DraftKings, right? If you stick it next to Bet365, people are going to use Bet365. You stick it next to maybe one of the lower ones, who knows? Maybe the product is a little more parity in it.
But what about DraftKings and FanDuel, etc., doing this as well? I mean, surely that's like legitimizing it. And then that situation in Nevada where they've gone, well, okay, you can keep your licenses because it turns out we don't fucking need them. Because of course in Nevada they've had to have an in-person registration thing, haven't they?
Yes, at the sports books. So this is a textbook example of just a gambit, right? Like they are assuming that at the end of this they'll be okay. I don't know if that's the case. I don't know how this is going to play out legally. People in this industry have long memories, regulators, tribes. They're not going to forget that you were trying to precede the sports betting market, and saw that in California a decade ago with bad actor, tainted asset clauses. That's why PokerStars is not in Nevada to this day. They have a tainted asset clause that keeps them from getting licensed. So the idea that, oh, well, we'll just do what we've done all along, which is go into this, I don't even want to call it a regulatory gray area, but kind of skirt around the legal regulated industry wherever possible, build up a database. Then when it's actually legalized there, which in California will be, I don't know, sometime when the machines take over in 2035 or something. So we have this situation where they're like, oh, well, there's no downside to it. I think there's probably an argument happening in the meetings that is, well, listen, if we go in and we geofence out all these legal states, not only does that give us some regulatory legal cover, but we're also undercutting one of Kalshi's biggest arguments in the courts, which is under CFTC rules, you have to offer this nationwide. You can't separate out different states. And they've also said that geolocation technology is too costly and logistically difficult to implement for them, which I would assume is news to XPoint and GeoComply and the other people.
GeoComply is pretty expensive.
Yeah. Well, Kalshi's worth $11 billion now, so
that's true. You
got to figure that they can handle it. So
sponsorships are available, GeoComply.
Yes, very, very much so. We'll take and we'll take dirty money or clean. We'll clean it for you.
Jesus Christ.
I don't think that's going to be a good selling point for you.
That's not, we have a no editing rule, but I think that one we'll edit.
So so it's almost a win-win if at the end of the day there's no bad blood still boiling from what they're doing, right? So if there's bad blood at the end of the day, then not so much a win-win.
There's going to be bad blood.
Kalshi's argument, then even if they don't produce anything from the prediction markets, that kind of works out.
Well, it's a bit like okay. So for me, I completely agree, Steve. There's kind of a couple of things going on there. So from the game theory perspective, it's if we do nothing, these guys are just going to control the narrative. And it's a bit like, Procter & Gamble and Lever Brothers or whatever the brands are have like 5 different detergent brands on the shelf, right? Or toothpaste or Colgate and toothpastes or whatever. There's 50 flavors just to like block out the shelf to stop anybody else launching a new toothpaste. And if they don't launch it, you're giving airtime, oxygen, market share away in these markets. And realistically, like FanDuel and DraftKings, like this rhymes, like the whole prediction markets really rhymes with DFS and their whole land grab back in the day and how they've used those databases to just switch on a market the second it becomes regulated. And it's not the first time they've played this game and got away with it. So they'd be crazy not to do it.
Yeah, I think that's the general argument for. I would.
Oh, and sorry, the third one, share price got hammered, and
yes.
They need to do something, right? Let's not forget that.
So to me, I think there is a reactionary element to this, and I think that the oxygen that's being given to prediction markets is driving a lot of the valuation for them and the belief.
Mhm.
I mean, Dustin posts about this quite often. It's like they're pretty much brand new and their weekly, betting volume is going down. Like this doesn't make a whole lot of sense while traditional sportsbook betting volume is going up. So there I think there's a disconnect. I talked to Davis Catlin recently from Discerning Capital, and he's another one who's kind of I'd say bearish on the prediction market opportunity. And I think the general feeling is among skeptics, which I would say I'm like a half skeptic, is this never has worked in the past, but this time it's different, and nobody can tell me why it's different. I just get a lot of platitudes about truth machines and this is what people want. I mean, you have the CEO of Kelsey saying this is $1 trillion opportunity. I don't like we're talking stock market level stuff on sports betting. Like I don't understand that. Like I love prediction markets. I think they're a really cool product. So I've been following it for years. Predicted, and even before that, there was the Iowa electronics market. But they're interesting. They're a secondary polling source. They're the secondary. They're the poker Twitter. Put your money where your mouth is. You have no skin in the game. I don't trust anybody who won't bet on it mentality. Unfortunately, in the real world, most people have a lot of very adamant views and will not bet on it. That's just the way most people are that I know. Like putting money on it does not make their views any more intense or any less intense. And I think that we start to get caught in that bubble that I talk about quite a lot. I mean, sometimes it's, a poker bubble. Sometimes it's a gambling bubble. Richard Schutz has a great anecdote on this, which is when he was in charge of Atlantic City hotel casino, they were trying to figure something out, and he just started riding the bus from Atlantic City to Philly or to New York. I don't remember which city it was. And those were the gamblers on, and he's getting like real world insight, like, oh yeah, they charge for this, they don't charge for that. That's why I like going there. It's like, so that's where those things are decided. I think we get caught up in a bubble where we think, oh, look at this. But I said this during the G2E thing, which is if you walk outside of that conference hallway where, there's 1,000 people maybe total go through there during the week, onto the convention floor, nobody even knows what a Kalshi is. Nobody knows what do you mean a prediction market? Say, oh, those polls? Oh, yeah, I know what that is. And then they're like, but have you seen these great leather chairs that are selling over here? So that's kind of where I tend to have to step back from the bubble, and maybe because half the day of mine is spent with little kids in martial arts school, I kind of realize oh, nobody even knows what this stuff is. Like I still talk to people all the time. I mean, sports betting has been legal here for quite a bit. I talk to people all the time that have no idea. They're like, oh wait, that's legal? Oh, like you can just bet on it? And it's like, yeah, where have you been? Like what? This has been going on for 3 years now, and it's just that when we step outside that bubble, I think we get a whole different perspective on what people are interested in, what people are looking for.
It's a good point, and I think if you look at, say, particularly the market analysts, who our bettors like to trade, and the amount of people from that background who have launched a business where it's, hey, we're going to have a startup where people can bet against their friends, because that's the gambling trading bubble that they live in. Any marketplace like this, like with your poker background, the big issue for poker is liquidity, and then it's the sharks are taking all the money from the fish. So if you've got Susquehanna or whoever as a market maker, they are the smartest guys in the room. Like, this is what they do, and they will take my money. I'm betting against them. I'm clearly wrong, right? So I think there's a fish problem coming at some point. I don't know when, I think, and like the other one is like the nature of an exchange is, again, you're taking a rake, you're taking a fee. You'll have market makers. Betfair had this problem. They had market makers making way more money than Betfair was making. At what point does that become unsustainable, right? If you're you need $1 trillion being traded to have that kind, to be a business, right? So you end up like, so there's kind of two fundamental flaws in the model potentially, which I don't know enough about the businesses to know if they're like they've been mitigated against or ignored or whatever. But I really like your question of like, everybody's saying, oh, this time it's different, but nobody's pointing to it. The only thing it's even close to pointing to it is if you look at the crypto bros and the meme coins and these kind of things where rationality and YOLO and let's get rich, let's buy these lottery tickets type mentality exists, and it becomes its own echo chamber. That's the only thing that's really different this time. They're single-handedly propping up Tesla share price. Tesla's valued way more than every car company combined, or whatever the kind of crazy comparables are. When realistically they're being totally outcompeted by Chinese cars these days, or whatever. So it's the only thing I can get to that's like, maybe the meme coin guys just keep this alive and it just becomes a thing. They've had a South Park episode, these kind of things. But on the fundamentals, I'm not sure it backs out over time.
Yeah, I feel like it's the peer-to-peer problem. I mean, there was a period where online poker sites were massive. Like you could print money with an online poker site. Show me that now, outside of like maybe a 4-year window, and if you go through past UIGEA, so from like 03 to 06 ish, if you had an online poker site, you could print money because you had global liquidity. Past that, you had to be in some really regulatory gray areas, serving countries that you're not supposed to be serving technically. And even then, you saw with PokerStars, with the VIP, changes they made. Eventually, that ecosystem gets so far out of whack with the peer-to-peer model that there's really not much you can do other than either keep raising fees to make sure that it stays a little bit more in whack, because maybe some of the market makers have to take on more risk or whatever. But to your point, I think if Susquehanna is the market maker, or if Kalshi Clear is the market maker, and they find that, hey, you know what, we're kind of getting beat up on these, don't you think they're going to go hire people that are going to make sure they don't get beat up on those? That's like the whole point of this. Is it's sort of like the professional poker player who starts using, the tracking software for, hands, and then also is using solvers and all this stuff, because the rake's a little higher at the site. So just beating it normally how they used to do it doesn't work anymore. So I got to do more. And all you're doing is creating this huge gap between the retail bettor and the professional bettor. Yeah. And I think we're seeing the same thing possibly happening already on these prediction markets. I call it a curiosity. People are like, hey, this is kind of neat. And then they're like, it seems like I'm not really doing quite as well as I thought I would on these. And I think you've said it without saying it, but the churn on peer-to-peer betting is astronomical. If anybody's been involved in a home poker game, they can attest to that, right? Tell me, start with 50 people, have no new people show up, and within a year you're playing six-handed, right? There's a huge amount of churn in peer-to-peer betting. People have better things to do than lose money. And
they want to stick it, $10 on their team or whatever it's going to be, and it's ultimately like the novelty betting stuff of like events and who's going to say what, and it exists in other sports books in other countries. It's called a novelty market, and it's something women and kids do, kind of thing. Like it's not a serious gambling thing. I don't mean it like that, but it's not like.
You're gonna ask me to edit that out.
We got 2 edits. We're up to 2.
2 edits. Let's go for a third. What else?
This is a new record.
We need
but
that WSOP guy that can do the AI voices.
But it's a it's a fun PR stunt type market. Like what color hat was the Queen going to wear to horse racing, or who's going to win the reality TV show, or next prime minister, next president. These are maybe next president's a bad example, but they're generally small niche markets.
But they're markets that are good for marketing. They're markets that are good for getting column inches in press or in the fucking news or whatever, and new money, inconsequential money, but it's all part of the branding
but
exercise.
Sports betting exists because sports betting's very exciting. And it's more exciting than a lot of the prediction markets.
I really like what Tarek Mansour said about this. He was trying to differentiate between betting and gambling. And I liked how he phrased this, and I think it's a great argument for sports betting on prediction markets, which is if you're betting on something that is going to take place anyway, that's betting. And if you're creating something for the sole intention of betting on it, then that's gambling. And I thought that was like a roll of a dice. There's no reason to roll dice other than to gamble on it, right? There's no reason to have a craps table other than to gamble on it. The Packers are going to play the Lions no matter what. So I thought that was a very interesting way to phrase this. And I think this is where it's coming down to, is that gaming question in the legal sense. Does the Commodities Exchange Act, when it says gaming, is it talking about a game, like a football game, or is it talking about a game that was created solely to gamble on, a slot machine, a craps game, a blackjack game, right? Those are different things. So the World Series of Poker is going to take place no matter what. So gambling on who's the winner of that seems like that's something that could be allowed. I'm not trying to make the legal case for this, by the way. I think there's a line that will eventually be drawn around these. So
Too late.
There's no sense in not allowing Super Bowl stuff on prediction markets. There's no sense not allowing Masters stuff. But there is a problem with, hey, how many rushing yards is so and so going to get on Sunday? That's a little different.
But the potential fallout for this, though, is, and regardless of the importance of prediction markets, what this raises is questions about the efficacy and the relevance of regulation and regulators. And that could actually be an enormous long-term impact of this, and one that we can't possibly foresee. I mean, the only, I know I've said this on this podcast before, but like the only area that's realistically got the funding to fight Kalshi is probably Nevada, and that's because the Nevada Resorts Association's gotten involved. So they suddenly have money and resources that most regulators have not got even close to. So that's where the fight's going to be.
I think states will get involved. I think if this is a big if state tax revenue starts taking a hit, I think you would see a conglomeration of states get together and hire some of the best lawyers. Dan Wallach's been talking about this. The cases where Kalshi is losing in courts, those states have brought on really high-powered legal teams. The states where Kalshi's doing quite well, it's the state AG kind of making the case. So there is, the lawyer question there. But to your point, I think where we're headed with this, with the legal question, is we're headed towards a situation where it can't be unwound completely, but it's got to have some type of guardrails. And those guardrails, so I said this recently in a column, which is I need somebody to tell me what the purpose of sports betting on a prediction market is for society, as opposed to sports betting at a sports book. Is it better oversight? Is it more likely to, what is the benefit of having 18 plus nationwide sports betting, which I'm not arguing for or against because I'm not really an 18-21 guy. But what is the benefit to what Kalshi is offering compared to what the traditional sports books are offering? Is it product? I don't think so. Is it some societal benefit? I don't see it. Is it better oversight? I don't see it. I need to know what their actual argument for existence is, more so than can you legally do this? Because I think if we get down to what's the better product, what's better for society, I think that's where the winner and loser in this will come out. And I still think if you just stick them side by side, the traditional sports books win.
It's an American solution to an American problem. Which, and I'm piggyback, there's a joke in Ireland, there's an Irish solution to Irish problems. And there's like, I've got a whole list of there's lots of famous examples of like workarounds and things we've done. But, you know, if you look at Kalshi, you look at sweeps, you look at all these kind of things, they're just all proxies for the fact that online gambling isn't legal or online betting isn't legal. And it's just, that's it. Like, it's just, there's clearly pent up demand and it's being met through legal means, and still a thriving offshore industry as well. How quickly, so when you look at business models like this, I always have a game, right? And the game is all roads lead to casino. So how quickly do these turn into online casinos if they haven't already?
That's a great question. Florida just kind of gave them the answer, right? So if sports are acceptable, maybe betting on historical sports results is acceptable when you don't really know the outcome and it's spun in some type of slot like cabinet, right? So there is that. Again, it's so weird because I think you hit the nail on the head, which is the whole problem is the lack of legal options. We have these things that people want to do, but of course we have these like lines we have to draw around that too. And I think there is something to be said, like I said earlier, people want to do things legally, but when it's completely cut off, it's a problem, right? So there's always people go to the drug argument, right? Well, why shouldn't heroin be legal then, right? Well, most people aren't really looking to do heroin, and most people really aren't looking to place $80,000 single game parlays on Jonte Porter unders. So we can draw lines around certain things. So, you want to place a single game parlay that's got a 200 to 1 payout. Well, you can't bet more than $25 on that, because I'm sorry, if you're trying to bet 80 grand on that, go offshore and see if they take your action, because they're not going to, because they know something's fishy about it, right? There's reasons that the offshore markets exist, and Alan Bowden says this all the time, which is some of that money you don't want. So stop trying to bring it in to the legal regulated market. It's going to cause problems. And I think that's like wise. I think there's a place for legal regulated betting, but I also think there's, I don't like slot machines at a grocery store. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah.
Right. That's a part of the market we don't want. Well, if they're going to go to an illegal dice game in the bottom of someone's basement, let them. That's nothing you can do about that other than bust the dice game. But that's the type of money we don't really want floating around in the legal regulated market. And I think there's lines that we have to draw around. I think we need legal regulated options for most forms of gambling, but we have to draw these lines around, well, this is actually not acceptable. If you want to bet $1 million on an online poker game, fly your ass to Vegas and go sit in one of the high stakes rooms. You obviously have the money to do that, right? There's no reason you need to do that online. And if you want to bet $100, and I'm all for it, whatever.
Wise words.
Very
You always speak such sense, Steve.
Not really.
Well, you stand out when you're on this podcast.
It's just the environment. It's the dog talk beforehand. It just gets the creative brain flowing.
This year's thriller, Stall Dogs. See it in theaters. But thank you for coming on. Thank you for joining us. It's been illuminating as ever. I'm going to have to ask you to come back probably early in the new year because I've got some other things I want to ask you. I've just been making notes.
Anytime.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
And so Steve, your newsletter, people can find it where?
Straight to the point.substack.com, or just find me on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Steve Ruddock.
Brilliant.
And if you're not getting Steve's newsletter, why not?
Missing out.
Yeah, in fact, I was Fintan, that author that we had on. Oh, actually, the episode's going to be aired after this one. But we had an author on who wrote a book called Losing Big. John, do you remember?
Yep.
John, in his acknowledgements, says Steve's is the only newsletter he reads every day.
Mm.
I have that book. He sent me a copy.
That's cool.
He's a big fan. We're all big fans. There's only two kinds of people in the world, Steve. Big fans of yours and people that haven't got straight to the point yet.
That's a good point.
I'll take it.
Peace out. If you've enjoyed this episode of the Gambling Files podcast, please find us on LinkedIn. Give us a big, juicy, succulent like. That nearly went wrong. You can find us under the name The Gambling Files Podcast. You can find us on Twitter under The Gambling Files. I think the handle is just @GamblingFiles. You can connect to myself, John Bruford, or Fintan Costello, also on LinkedIn. We're also both on Twitter. And you can find all of our previous episodes at www.thegamblingfiles.com. If you enjoyed it, please share. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your colleagues, and we'll see you next time.